Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the closest full service supermarket to your home is now 15 miles away. No announcement, no warning. This is not a distant future. This is America in 2025, where a quiet wave of grocery shutdowns is spreading faster than anyone expected and hitting communities that never imagined losing their only affordable store. More than 7,000 retail and grocery locations have already disappeared nationwide. But the number itself isn't the real danger. The real danger is what those closures create: long drives, higher prices, fewer choices, and millions of people pushed into what experts now call expanding American food deserts. And here's the part no one wants to talk about. The chains collapsing the fastest aren't small independents. They're major national brands, some over 100 years old, some backed by billion-dollar corporations, some once considered the future of automated shopping. Yet today, they are shrinking, retreating, or disappearing entirely. Every closure reveals a deeper truth. America's food system is under pressure like never before, and the cracks are widening in places you least expect. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which chains are collapsing, why it's happening now, and how these shifts could impact your own community before the year ends. Number 10. Kroger. For more than 140 years, Kroger has been the reliable backbone of American grocery shopping. It is the store people over 50 remember visiting with their parents, the place where weekly routines felt predictable and safe. That is why what's happening in 2025 feels almost unreal. Kroger is finally stepping back. The company has confirmed that roughly 60 stores will close over the next 18 months. At first glance, 60 might not sound catastrophic until you examine the economics behind it. Grocery profit margins hover between 1 and 3%. A slight rise in wages, a spike in fuel prices, or a jump in transportation costs can erase a store's entire annual profit in weeks. Today, all of those pressures are colliding at once. Refrigerated trucks cost more to run than many stores earn. Labor expenses rise every quarter, and customer habits have quietly shifted in a way that hits Kroger hardest. Middle-income shoppers split their carts between Walmart for cheaper items, Aldi for quick trips, and Costco for bulk savings. Younger shoppers chase promotions over loyalty. Older Americans living on fixed incomes reduce their visits because the totals at checkout feel heavier every month. Kroger is being pushed into the one position no retailer wants: the middle. Not the cheapest, not the fastest, not the strongest, just stuck between competitors who each do something better. But the impact on communities is far more personal. In dozens of smaller towns, Kroger isn't just a store. It's the only pharmacy, the only fresh produce option, the only dependable stop for families who cannot afford to drive 20 extra minutes for groceries. When Kroger leaves, the entire rhythm of that town breaks. Number 9. Safeway. For decades, Safeway has been more than a grocery store on the West Coast. It has been part of the daily rhythm of life, especially for older adults who trust familiar faces, familiar aisles, and familiar routines. Safeway carried a sense of stability that felt almost permanent. But in 2025, that stability is cracking in ways customers never imagined. Across California, Washington, and Oregon, Safeway stores have begun to disappear quietly. In the San Francisco Bay Area alone, 4 locations were closed within a year. Some customers drove up expecting a normal shopping day and instead found dark windows, locked doors, and a handwritten sign taped to the glass. No warning, no transition, no chance for the neighborhood to prepare, just gone. The reasons reach far beyond one store or one region. Safeway is tied to Albertsons, and when a parent company becomes unstable, every chain beneath it feels the shake. Delays in restocking have become common. Inventory levels fluctuate from week to week. Operating costs on the West Coast rise faster than the modest profits a traditional supermarket can earn. Shoppers who once loved stopping by after work now compare Safeway's totals to Walmart, Trader Joe's, or Costco and quietly shift their habits. But the emotional loss is what people talk about most. Many adults over 50 say Safeway is the only place where they recognize every employee by name. Losing that store feels like losing a piece of the community's identity, a small but meaningful anchor of everyday life. Number 8. Albertsons. Albertsons is one of those names Americans once assumed would stand forever. With nearly 90 years of history and a portfolio that includes Safeway, Bonds, Jewel Osco, and several of the nation's most recognizable grocery brands, it felt too large, too established, too woven into American life to stumble. But 2025 is proving otherwise. Beneath the surface, Albertsons is entering one of the most fragile moments in its entire existence. Financial analysts have issued warnings few ever expected to see attached to a company this size. Rapid Ratings classified Albertsons as a very high risk of default, a label that shocked the entire retail industry. Stores across California, Washington, and Nevada began showing early signs long before the media noticed. Shelves that were restocked slower than usual, reduced product variety, and longtime employees quietly admitting that operations felt different lately. And then came the number that rattled workers the most, a $565 million shortfall in the company's pension fund. For tens of thousands of employees who built careers inside these stores, the gap feels like the ground shifting beneath their feet. The chain's lifeline was supposed to be its merger with Kroger, a massive deal intended to help both companies survive brutal competition. But antitrust regulators halted the merger, leaving Albertsons stuck between two realities: not healthy enough to thrive alone, not allowed to merge to regain strength. It is a corporate limbo, and every month inside that limbo pushes the company closer. Communities feel the uncertainty too. Neighborhoods that rely on Albertsons for fresh food and pharmacy services sense the instability creeping in. Small businesses near those stores lose foot traffic. Older adults worry about losing their most familiar shopping option. Number 7. Amazon Fresh. When Amazon Fresh first launched, many people believed the grocery industry had finally stepped into the future. You could raise your hand to enter, pick up what you wanted, and simply walk out. No checkout lines, no small talk, no waiting behind 3 full carts at 5 in the afternoon. It looks sleek, effortless, and unstoppable. The kind of innovation only a tech giant like Amazon could pull off. But in 2025, the vision has collided head-on with reality, and the results are far different from what anyone expected. Amazon has quietly closed multiple fresh locations across the country, and the reasoning behind those closures reveals a flaw no amount of futuristic branding could hide. The Just Walk Out system. The core technology powering these stores requires an expensive network of sensors, scanners, and overhead cameras. Each store costs millions to build and millions more to operate. But grocery retail has some of the thinnest margins in the entire economy. When the cost of the technology surpasses the profit of the food it sells, the math simply doesn't work. Inside the stores, the experience was impressive, but not complete. Technology can record what you pick up, but it cannot answer questions about expiration dates. It cannot tell an older shopper whether the apples are sweeter this week. It cannot sort wilted produce or connect with customers looking for something familiar and human. Amazon discovered something traditional grocers have known for decades. Buying food is not just a transaction. It is an emotional habit built on trust, touch, and routine. Communities felt the experiment unraveling too. Shoppers who enjoyed the novelty wondered why their locations suddenly shut down. Others who were hesitant from the beginning took the closures as confirmation that automation can't replace the human parts of grocery shopping. Number 6. Save-A-Lot. Save-A-Lot was built for one purpose: to give low-income Americans a place where groceries were still affordable. For decades, it served neighborhoods other chains ignored, places where every dollar mattered and where even small price differences changed the rhythm of a family's entire week. That mission made Save-A-Lot feel almost untouchable. But in 2025, the chain is facing a painful reality. Even the store created for the poor is struggling to survive. Over the past decade, Save-A-Lot has already sold or closed more than 300 locations, and the contraction hasn't stopped. In states like Missouri, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, shelves have been thinning, product variety shrinking, and then without warning, signs appear on the doors, telling customers the store is permanently closed. Some closures are so quiet that residents only learn about them when they arrive after work and find carts chained and lights turned off.
The root of the problem is not a lack of customers. Save-A-Lot shoppers have never disappeared. The problem is that they are too poor to sustain a fragile business model in an era when competitors have turned efficiency into a weapon. Dollar General, Aldi, and Walmart Neighborhood Market have built logistics systems so optimized that they can sell cheap products and still make money. Save-A-Lot cannot keep up. Its franchise structure is fragmented, its distribution network is outdated, and its capital is far too thin to fight in a market where every cent matters. And the human impact is heavier than any financial chart can show. When a Save-A-Lot shuts down, many neighborhoods lose their most affordable food source. Families already struggling with rising rent and utilities must suddenly drive farther and pay more for basics they barely managed to afford in the first place. A closed discount store does more than create a food desert. It creates a hope desert, leaving communities with expensive choices they never had the budget to make. Number 5. Winn-Dixie. For nearly a century, Winn-Dixie has been part of the Southern identity. In Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, the red and white sign wasn't just another storefront. It was where families stopped after church, where grandparents bought Sunday dinner ingredients, where generations shared routines that felt timeless. That's why the changes unfolding in 2025 feel like a quiet earthquake spreading across the South. Southeastern Grocers, the parent company behind Winn-Dixie, has confirmed another round of permanent store closures this year. Unlike previous strategic adjustments or rebrand attempts, these closures are not about optimization. They are about survival. Rising transportation costs have pushed the company into its most expensive distribution era on record. Fuel prices and long-distance logistics hit southern routes
Especially hard, and every mile of refrigerated trucking cuts deeper into shrinking profit margins. Meanwhile, wages across southern states have risen steadily, and operating costs no longer align with the modest sales that many older Winn-Dixie stores rely on. The brand finds itself trapped between nostalgia and necessity. Shoppers who once swore by Winn-Dixie now chase lower prices at Walmart, faster convenience at Publix, or weekly deals at Aldi. Younger families choose what fits their budget. Older adults choose what saves them a drive. What Winn-Dixie offers no longer matches the demands of a region where inflation has squeezed purchasing power for 3 straight years. But the emotional loss is far heavier than the financial one. In many towns across the South, a Winn-Dixie closure marks the end of a community routine that held people together. Local restaurants lose foot traffic. Small shops nearby feel the slowdown. For some residents, it is a disappearance of a familiar landmark that shaped everyday life. Number 4. Sprouts Farmers Market. For years, Sprouts Farmers Market stood for something refreshing in American grocery culture: clean food without the intimidating price tag of Whole Foods. It became the go-to place for shoppers who wanted better produce, healthier choices, and a sense of well-being without feeling like they were overspending. But in 2025, that promise is unraveling. Not because people stopped caring about healthy eating, but because the cost of maintaining that lifestyle has climbed beyond what most families can justify. Inflation has reshaped the meaning of affordability. A box of strawberries that once felt like a small treat now costs close to $9. Greens that used to feel reasonable now push past $5. Organic meats are often twice the price of conventional options. And for middle-class families juggling rising rent, utilities, and medical costs, clean eating becomes not a choice, but a luxury. As these pressures build, Sprouts has quietly begun shrinking its footprint. Stores in California, Colorado, Arizona, and New York have reduced staffing, scaled back fresh sections, or closed with barely a whisper. In some neighborhoods, the signs came down within a day. The deeper issue is structural. Sprouts exists in a challenging middle zone, healthier and fresher than regular supermarkets, but not affordable enough for families trying to stretch their budgets. Trader Joe's undercuts them with cult-level efficiency. Whole Foods attracts the premium shoppers. Sprouts gets caught between aspiration and reality. The emotional shift is noticeable. Shoppers who once proudly filled their carts with organic produce now say they just can't afford to be healthy anymore. They leave with fewer items, visit less often, or switch stores entirely. For many, Sprouts was a symbol of balance, a place where eating well still felt within reach.
Losing that balance feels like losing a piece of hope. Number 3, Lucky's Market. Lucky's Market was once the bright promise of a new kind of grocery experience. Organic food without the intimidating prices, healthier choices without the premium branding, and a warm, cozy atmosphere that felt far more personal than the big chains. For years, Lucky's was celebrated as the friendlier version of Trader Joe's and the more affordable alternative to Whole Foods. It felt like the best of both worlds. But in 2025, that promise has collided with a much harsher economic reality. The cost of producing, transporting, and storing organic food has surged. Everything from farming materials to refrigeration to labor became more expensive long before the economy cooled. For a chain built on the idea of healthy but accessible, those rising costs cut into the one thing Lucky's could never lose: its delicate margins. By late 2024 and early 2025, the financial strain became impossible to hide. Lucky's recorded double-digit revenue declines, and stores in Colorado, Florida, and Ohio began to close in rapid waves. Some locations shut down within days of the decision, leaving customers stunned and employees scrambling for answers. The heartbreak of Lucky's story lies in its structure. Unlike Trader Joe's, which runs on an exceptionally optimized private label model, or Whole Foods, backed by Amazon's immense resources, Lucky's stood alone. It tried to compete in a market where the rules had already changed, where big players had deeper pockets and small players needed flawless efficiency just to survive. Lucky's was beloved, but love isn't enough when the economics no longer work. Shoppers who once made Lucky's part of their weekly routine now face the same troubling pattern affecting so many communities across the country. They see fresh sections shrinking, local specialties disappearing, and whole stores going dark with barely any notice. Many say the same thing. The dream of affordable organic food no longer fits the America they're living in. Number 2, Piggly Wiggly. More than a century ago, in 1916, Piggly Wiggly changed American shopping forever. It was the first supermarket to let customers walk the aisles on their own, pick items off the shelves, and push their own carts. Generations across the South, the pink sign with the smiling pig became a familiar landmark, a piece of local culture woven into daily life. But in 2025, that historic icon is fading in silence. The decline hasn't come with big announcements or media storms. Instead, stores have simply disappeared, one by one across South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Mississippi from 2022 through 2025. Locations that once buzzed with weekend crowds now sit empty, their parking lots cracked, their signs taken down or replaced with independent shops. Some buildings are left vacant for months, their windows gathering dust as if the past was erased overnight. The cause is more than nostalgia giving way to time. Piggly Wiggly operates on an outdated franchise model, fragmented ownership, uneven store quality, and a logistics system that cannot compete with Walmart's scale or Aldi's ruthless efficiency. Technology upgrades are expensive, and many locations never modernize enough to keep pace with digital inventory systems, streamlined restocking, or the new expectations of younger shoppers. In an industry where every cent matters, traditional alone cannot pay the bills. But what pains longtime customers the most is not the closures themselves, it's the way they happen. No celebration of the store's legacy, no final thank you, no recognition of the generations who shopped there. One morning, the doors are simply locked and the iconic pig is gone. For some towns, losing a Piggly Wiggly is like losing a piece of their identity, a place that shaped memories stretching back decades. Number 1, Family Dollar. Family Dollar's collapse is unlike anything happening to any other chain on this list. Most grocery stores decline because of slow revenue drops, rising costs, or competition they can't outrun. But Family Dollar's downfall in 2025 comes from something far more shocking, a crisis so severe, so unexpected, that it shut down hundreds of locations overnight and left entire communities stunned. In less than 3 years, Family Dollar has closed 390 stores due to financial losses and restructuring. But that number isn't what pushed it to the top of this list. The real blow came from an unprecedented disaster, a massive rodent infestation inside one of its primary distribution centers. An incident so severe that federal inspectors were forced to shut down 404 additional stores across multiple southern states instantly, Not gradually, not with a transition, instantly. When inspectors entered the warehouse in Arkansas, they found evidence that stunned the nation. Food packaging chewed through, contaminated shipments, and widespread waste that made products unsafe to sell. The fallout was immediate. More than 1,000 items were recalled across the region, marking one of the largest recall events the low-cost retail sector had ever seen. Customers lost trust, suppliers pulled back, and the chain, already struggling with thin margins, suddenly found itself fighting a crisis it could not contain. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Family Dollar serves the poorest neighborhoods in America, places where grocery options are limited, transportation is difficult, and every dollar matters. Many of these towns do not have a Walmart neighborhood market. They do not have an Aldi. They barely have a local grocery store. For millions of households, Family Dollar is the closest and the cheapest choice for essentials like canned goods, toiletries, cleaning supplies, and school snacks. When a Family Dollar closes, people don't just lose a store, they lose their only nearby option. The impact is immediate and personal. Single parents are forced to drive 10 or 15 miles for basic necessities. Older adults on fixed incomes must stretch their budgets even further. Families already living one small crisis away from financial instability find themselves with fewer choices and higher prices. The closure of a Family Dollar doesn't just shift shopping habits, it reshapes daily survival. And that is why Family Dollar stands at the top of this list, not because it is the largest chain, but because its collapse creates the largest human void. It exposes the deepest vulnerabilities in America's grocery landscape, a landscape where the poorest communities have the fewest safety nets, and where one corporate disaster can erase an entire neighborhood's access to affordable goods overnight. The stories in this countdown reveal a simple truth. America's grocery landscape is shifting faster than anyone expected. Rising costs, shrinking margins, and widening American food deserts show how fragile the system has become. These grocery store closures aren't just business decisions. As they reshape daily life, especially for older adults and low-income families, communities must adapt to longer drives, higher prices, and fewer choices. And with even more grocery store closures projected this year, the map will keep changing. Which chain's decline surprised you the most? If this opened your eyes, hit subscribe so you never fall behind the next shift. Rising costs, shrinking margins, and widening American food deserts show how fragile the system has become. These grocery store closures aren't just business decisions. As they reshape daily life, especially for older adults and low-income families, communities must adapt to longer drives, higher prices, and fewer choices. And with even more grocery store closures projected this year, the map will keep changing. Which chain's decline surprised you the most? If this opened your eyes, hit subscribe so you never fall behind the next shift.